Well, guys, it's official. The sequel to the Sonic the Hedgehog movie has a title and a release date. The title being, fittingly, Sonic the Hedgehog 2, and the release date, April 8th, 2022. So, Andre and Tris, now that we know for sure that this movie is happening and it's happening soon, let's just talk about all of this. Let's talk about everything we could possibly hope to see now that we know just that it's happening and that, according to Ben Schwartz, it is starting filming very soon. So, Andre and Tris, what are your overall thoughts on this as we begin? Are you excited for this movie? Did you enjoy the first one? Yeah, let's just start there.
Andre, didn't you see the first one multiple times?
I think I saw it 3 times in theaters.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Which is probably more than I played any one of the games.
That's awesome.
Yeah, no, I really enjoyed the movie. I was surprised. Like most people, was very hesitant, to put it kindly, based on the initial trailer. But they kind of hit it out of the park based on what it appeared it would be, and I really enjoyed it. I thought Jim Carrey's Robotnik was amazing. I thought Sonic was a fun character in the movie, and of course, the ending, which, by the way, we're going to spoil everything here, just again.
Yes,
from the first. That ending, even though, again, I'm not a huge Sonic fan, like, seeing Tails pop in, I'm like, yeah, hell yeah, Tails!
It's awesome, yeah.
Yeah, it was great.
Yeah.
And even though that obviously implies that Tails will be in the sequel,
Right.
it is nice to see the logo reflect that as well. Tails' tail actually being attached to the 2.
Yeah, I definitely think it's really exciting. I enjoyed the first movie as well. I was pleasantly surprised. I didn't actually have too high expectations for it. I saw it twice. Well, I only saw it, oh yeah. I saw it once in theaters, and then after fully released, I watched it again with some friends that didn't get a chance to see it originally in theaters. And I just have really fond memories of it, honestly. It was only a year ago. It's not like I'm getting nostalgic over it, but it was just a really fun time. The movie's really good at making you smile and have a good time with it.
You said it was only a year ago, but that was before the 2020 pandemic, so that's
That's
5
true.
years ago.
Much longer.
That is absolutely true, yeah.
That's a good point. It's kind of wild to think how quick the turnaround is on this. Actually, it'll pretty much only be 2 years since the first movie came out that we'll be getting this sequel, assuming they do stick with the release date and it's not delayed as much as the first one was. But yeah, I also really enjoyed the first movie. Not to compare it with another sort of similar video game adaptation, but I also really loved Detective Pikachu, and I like that for reasons different from why I like the Sonic movie. I think that movie was very big and cinematic, and it tried to do and accomplish a lot. Whereas what I kind of liked about the Sonic movie was it was very kind of contained in its own little world. It wasn't trying to be this huge blockbuster film. Sort of the third act it did with more kind of bigger set pieces and that sort of thing. But I really liked just the kind of smaller, almost more independent film kind of feel of it, like the road trip vibe and that sort of thing. I really liked it, but that does lead to what we kind of hope to see from the second movie, and whether we kind of want it to have that same feel and that same scope that the first one had, or if we want to see something much bigger and more, tied into the games. Now that, of course, the end of the first movie definitely suggested that to be the case. So, Andre, let's start with you. You already sort of touched on Tails a bit and how you'd hope to see Tails in the next movie, but in terms of scope and kind of where you think this movie and the story could go next, what are you thinking that you would love to see from Sonic the Hedgehog 2?
Yeah, I definitely would love to see them explore even more of the Sonic universe, more of the zones, or I guess worlds as they are in this case. As you said, they wrapped it up. The previous Sonic movie concluded basically in what looked to be Mushroom Hill Zone, or in Mushroom Hill World, where Robotnik ended up, and then he promised to be home for Christmas. He should be home by now, going by that. Yeah, so I think it'd be fun that they definitely explored, if not just that world, but even more beyond it. But the more I think about it too, I'm like, so much of what made the first movie work, oddly enough, actually was Sonic's interactions with the human world and how he fit in there, or how he didn't, as it may have been. And so it's almost a little difficult now to picture a sequel that doesn't feature that to a significant degree. And we also know that Tails now is on Earth as well, meeting up with Sonic, so it makes me wonder, they could make that go in any direction. They could, teleport away from there and go back home to meet up with, to reunite with his mom if she's still alive. We don't know for sure that she's dead. She's probably dead. We don't know for sure. But there's a number of directions they could take this, and I think what will probably work best is some kind of mix of the two. Mixing a little bit more of the more exotic locations, which would probably be entirely CG based, and keep some of the human world in there too. But again, how do you balance that? It's a difficult question, and I'm not sure. But what I don't want them to do is just lean entirely on the human world again, like they did pretty much last time, because we've seen that. Like Sonic can only experience a world once for the first time. Yeah, we have Tails that could do it too, but it'd be retreading the same territory. So I don't know if we want to. We need to keep seeing that over and over.
Yeah, I think as long as they don't do more than half the movie with that, I think it would be fine. Like if you have like, I don't know, the first third of the movie be focused on like Tails finding Sonic and experiencing this world for the first time, and then learning Sonic as a family, and then you get to like the actual movie stuff, then I think that'd be fine.
Yeah, I think so too. I think that makes sense. They can't really repeat the same sort of in a new world, learning kind of what's Earth like. They can't really repeat that again. They could do it to an extent with Tails. Like I think that could be a fun kind of montage in the beginning, like Sonic showing Tails around. But I definitely would love to see this movie kind of branch out in how big it is and explore, go to these new worlds and these new kind of universes, and tie in more from the games as well. Now, something else I want to talk about, which we've sort of heard rumors about the potential of Knuckles joining the cast as well and having a pretty prominent role in the film. All just rumors and speculation right now, but how would you guys feel about them bringing in more Sonic characters? Obviously, Tails was teased at the end of the first movie. I think it would be really cool, though, if, they tease Tails as, like, the big new thing that's going to be in the second movie, but, the audiences didn't realize at the time, oh, that's only the beginning. And there's going to be way more, even after that, of Sonic characters introducing to this, new kind of movie universe. What are your thoughts on that? Triss, let's start with you, since you are our resident Sonic expert, or at least you know the most about Sonic out of Andre and I. How do you feel about that?
So, I actually wouldn't be too surprised if Knuckles is here, because I believe the first Sonic movie actually started with Sonic and his adopted mother being attacked by various echidna. Basically, Knuckles, just not named Knuckles. So they already have worked with them a little bit, and in this case, I would imagine that would be a good basis for the sort of rivalry the two are known for, and kind of, I hate the term, but frenemies. Like, where they're friends, but they're also kind of rivals, and they usually start off as enemies. The games tend to play that off as Knuckles always getting tricked, but I think, given that Sonic spent his childhood running from the echidna, and seemingly to him, they killed his mother, that he probably won't have a good start with Knuckles. But I can imagine them, like, joining forces for a greater cause of, like, fighting Robotnik.
Yeah, that could be really cool to see.
Yeah, I mean, I think Knuckles almost has to be here, because we've already seen Sonic versus Robotnik, right? So, I mean, they could repeat that again, but it's, again, exploring the same territory.
It depends on how they're choosing to adapt it from the games, because the first Sonic movie, as a bunch of people kind of bring up, is very much like Sonic 1. And then Knuckles technically never appeared until Sonic 3. And this little teaser we got for Sonic the Hedgehog 2, with little Tails, that's not only the first actual game where Tails appears, but the actual little teaser, the music that plays is, I think, Emerald Hill Zone from Sonic 2. So they might be leaning more into specifically Sonic 2 in this case, but who knows?
I mean, I think in order to switch up the dynamic a little bit more, that we will need like a second foil for Sonic to go after. But do you think Knuckles might be key to having to maybe Robotnik's escape from the Mushroom Zone or world or whatever? Especially because I believe that is the first zone you see Knuckles in the games. So that could be a fun little callback, but again, they could take it in any number of directions.
Going back on Tails for a moment here, because I'm actually curious on something here as just, I don't know, to spout Sonic lore, question mark. Something interesting is in the first Sonic movie, we see Sonic ends up on Earth like as a kid. Like, he's young when he ends up on Earth, and then he's stuck there for some time, and then he's, I don't know, a young teenager, or however old he actually is. He's still basically a kid, but he's not as tiny. He's not baby Sonic anymore. Whereas in most of the Sonic lore, Tails is usually depicted as, like, a literal kid, like the baby Sonic, so to say. Normally that's Tails, and Sonic's significantly older than Tails, but they're, like, best friends. But in this case, if Sonic has been on Earth for what might be most of his life in this case, how does Tails actually know him? Unless they're, like, the same age and, like, grew up together? Because I'm actually curious how Tails knows Sonic in this case, because it doesn't seem like they actually would have met in this series of events, unless they either
That's
were raised
true.
together then separated, or if Sonic's mother is actually alive and sent Tails to find him.
That's a good point.
The whole thing with Sonic in the first movie was that he had no friends, and he wanted
Exactly.
to make a friend, right? So,
Exactly.
yeah, I mean, that's something I've wondered before, too, and it could be that, yeah, maybe his mom, who's possibly still alive, tasked Tails with this. Yeah, maybe they were friends at one point before, being separated somehow.
Well, yeah, I'd never thought about that before, but now that I'm thinking about it, I kind of love the idea of Tails and Sonic never having actually met.
Yeah.
Or maybe they sort of knew each other when they were babies, but yeah, like having Sonic's mother maybe sends Tails back if, she's still alive and everything.
Mm-hmm.
And then we actually get to see their friendship form and evolve. I think that would be really great. Because, like, when you think about it, it makes the most sense, or it's just the most obvious to do it where Tails and Sonic have been friends forever, and Tails just comes to save Sonic, and, great, meeting up with an old friend. But one, yeah, that doesn't make much sense now that you describe it, Tris. And two, it would be really cool to see that friendship actually grow and just see the beginning of it. Which we don't see much in the games, I don't think. They've always been friends.
Yep.
That could be really fun.
Yeah, in the games they're pretty much always friends. In like the games, the comics, and pretty much most media, they're always friends. But Sonic's the older one that Tails looks up to because he wants to be like him when he's older, kind of thing. But in this case, they might actually be like around the same age and have a more,
Right.
I guess, natural friend dynamic, which is a really interesting take that I'm actually looking forward to seeing.
Isn't Tails supposed to be like 4 years old or something?
Tails is supposed to be like 8. I think Tails is supposed to be like somewhere between 8 and 12, and Sonic's supposed to be like 15 or 16.
Okay. Yeah, it's probably best to just avoid the age issue entirely
Yeah.
in the movie.
Yeah, they'll probably just make them the same age.
Yeah, exactly. One thing I'm curious though about is the fact that Tails was actually represented by the game voice actor for them being Colleen Billard.
That's right.
At the end of the Sonic 1 movie, and I wonder if that's something they'll continue in 2, or if they'll recast Tails to have a bigger name, much as they did with Sonic himself. Although the interesting thing with Sonic recently is we just found out not too long ago that Sonic's in-game voice actor is being changed too. Although Ben Schwartz did say that he hasn't been approached about that role. But yeah, it does make me wonder what they're gonna do here. I kind of hope they keep the game voice actor because it just worked well for the character, and
Yeah.
I'm also like, now that they've had it, and it would bug me knowing that the voice changed between movies.
Yes, yeah.
That is true. Yeah, I think I would also be a little bit annoyed if that ended up being the case. Thankfully, I don't think. Well, there's two sides to this, right? On one hand, they could totally stick with the same voice actress because she already did it for the movie, and as we know from what Ben Schwartz says, it seems they're trying to treat the movie and game separate. So, already casted for the movie, staying for the movie. But on the other hand, it was just a post-credit scene.
Exactly.
So they could say, like, oh, well, now that Tails is the main character, and now everyone will actually see this. Now we're gonna properly cast Tails as some other person that'll play a big role in the movie, instead of this post-credit scene that maybe half the audience ended up seeing.
Yeah, very true. And it's also possible that when they made that post-credit scene, when they made it for the first movie, they were sort of doing it as an experiment. They were, they were going to adapt for the sequel based on what the reaction to that was.
True.
It's possible they didn't know that Tails would be involved in the sequel, which we don't even know either. We can assume Tails will be in it, but have a really big role, we're not completely sure. But we assume that based on the post-credit scene, and it's possible that they weren't sure either, and so now they'll sort of have to adapt with the voice actor, voice actress situation. I would love to see the Tails voice actress from the game stay in the movie. Unfortunately, I just can't see it happening because I do think they'll want to go for a big name for it, and I think they'll probably want to do that with any other characters as well. But the good thing is they don't have to, I think, win over audiences as much with this movie, whether that comes to the casting or the marketing, because they've got people's trust now that the first movie ended up pretty good. It was a really uphill battle for them leading up to the release of the first one, winning over the trust and respect of people because there were a lot of mistakes made, but now they've sort of got a handle of things, so.
Now everyone has a smile on their face when they think about the Sonic movie.
Which is so bizarre.
Exactly.
We can't really undersell like how difficult this battle was. Like even the premise of making a Sonic live action movie, like how do you even make that work? And they somehow pulled it off, despite the initial trailer making it look like it wouldn't. So yeah, they have me looking forward to a Sonic sequel, which is quite impressive.
Yeah. And they pulled it off. They didn't even take, I think, the easy way out, which is just kind of making a version of the games in movie form. Like, they sent Sonic to Earth, which is wild. Like, how could you possibly do that? That makes it more challenging for them to write it and make it interesting. They didn't just adapt a story that kind of already existed. So,
especially since there's already a few stories that take place on Earth, but like half of them don't explain how they got there. So I think the only one that did was the Sonic X cartoon. I think that was the only one that actually explained how they got to Earth. I could be wrong here. Even then, though, the whole point behind it is a matter of they put more into this in terms of Sonic being on Earth than I think people expected. Instead of Sonic being this naturally occurring thing on Earth, they actually wrote it in a way that made a lot of sense. And I look forward to this, as weird as it sounds to say, this extended Sonic universe in movies that I hope actually goes well.
Yeah. Well, the thing I'm looking forward to the most myself is Jim Carrey's Dr. Robotnik. I thought he was great in the movie, and then at the very end, he goes all in on Dr. Robotnik or Eggman, where he even like adopted the voice of the game's voice actor, and that just has me really excited to see like where all he's going with it now. Like he's gone all in on the Dr. Robotnik thing, and I can't wait to see the performance he gives this time.
I really hope he continues to lean into that for the second movie, because that was like scary levels of spot on in the end there.
Yeah, I hope so too. I think there's so much that the first movie set up or established or introduced toward the end of it that they can really lean into for this one and just build upon even more. And I think the first movie, it works on its own, but there's just so much more that they can do, especially with Jim Carrey's Dr. Robotnik. I'm so excited. I'm so excited for that.
I've got one silly question, though, to ask regarding Robotnik. Do you guys think we'll see his assistant again? The one that he kept, like... being really mean to.
Absolutely.
I love that. I hope so.
Except we'll see them in rock form. The rock he has on the Mushroom Planet. He'll be talking to it like the volleyball from Castaway at the beginning of song 2. And you guys reminded me of one thing too, and that's at the end of the first Sonic movie. There was a lot of like kind of, I was gonna say world hopping. It's more region hopping on Earth, using the rings. And I think that might be an angle that they really lean into this time as well. Like they've now established this means of transportation or teleportation, and that could be an easy way, like exploring these different worlds and really kind of showing off more of the Sonic universe. They even teased a map in the first movie that had all kinds of like Sonic references divided among a variety of planets. And I would also be shocked if we don't see more of those, especially because this movie will presumably have a bigger budget than the first one based on its success, and that should give them more leeway to explore more extravagant locations.
Totally.
Yeah.
Well, as we wrap this up, speaking of, what is one thing for each of you, and I'll try to think of an answer too, that we haven't talked about here from the first movie that you would love to see either brought back or done better or expanded upon? What is one element? We already, unfortunately, talked about Dr. Robotnik, which might be all of our answers. For me, it would be, since I just sprang that upon you, I'll answer first. For me, it'll be, I would love to see more really cool slow motion running sequences with Sonic, sort of a la Quicksilver in X-Men. I really want them to take Sonic's super speed and do some really cool, set pieces and just moments with that where he's doing all sorts of crazy stuff. I would love to see that, potentially in addition to the world hopping that you mentioned, Andre, just running through these like big ring portals and just going to all these different worlds like super fast, and it's super high speed and high stakes and everything. That'd be super cool.
Something I think that they can do better than what they did in the first one is the first movie was really all about setting up Sonic making his first ever friend. And I really hope they don't lean too far into that again. And I hope in this case they don't pull a case where what's the best way to describe this? Getting too comfortable with it. Like I hope friendship isn't the main focus of, even though it will be to some degree, and that's fine. But I hope it doesn't become here's another lesson about friendship and making friends, and instead more of a focus on Sonic as an overall character instead of his reliance on needing a friend. Because he has that friend now, and he'll have even more friends, as we know from Tails and others.
Yeah, good point. So for me, I guess, I already mentioned Dr. Robotnik. That's the thing I'm looking forward to the most. I thought he was hilarious in the first one. But one of the things I did actually appreciate about the first one was the amount of like care that they put into in like connecting the movie to the Sonic games and universe with like little Easter eggs or references. And I think it'd be really fun that he leaned into that even more. Give us even maybe more obscure Easter eggs, like, hey, let's get something about Sonic R in there or something.
That'd be awesome.
I do actually have something different. I hope Sonic doesn't have to stay a secret this time.
Oh yeah.
Oh, true. Yeah.
Because even though he's kind of, I guess, hiding from the government still, the entirety of Green Hills saw what happened. They know he stopped the bad guy, so he can be comfortable and at home there, hopefully.
True. That's a good point.
Yeah, great point.
All right, well, I think that wraps up our discussion, but do either of you have any final thoughts on the Sonic the Hedgehog 2 movie?
With all the twos, I'm disappointed it's not releasing on February 22nd of 2022.
I know. That would have been good.
I do like how the title is the most basic title ever, but it does follow in the line of the games, which was also just Sonic the Hedgehog 2. And I'm hoping that they maybe evoke that amazing box art from the games for the movie. Like in the movie poster, we're in the vein of and we actually even recreated that ourselves to some degree in a previous thumbnail featuring Dr. Robotnik and like grabbing the two. It looked, with Jim Carrey rather grabbing the two. It looked amazing. So I'll probably put that up on the screen right now. But and I like how even Paramount kind of pokes fun at the fact that this is a really unimaginative movie title.
Exactly.
Yeah, I'm excited, and as you said earlier, Chris, like it's coming surprisingly soon, just a little after 2 years from the first one, which is a pretty quick turnaround. And I just hope that the quality doesn't suffer, because it did feel like we were hearing about the first Sonic movie for quite a bit longer than a 2-year period. Maybe I'm misremembering, but it felt like we were hearing about it forever. And now it's like, oh, the sequel's going to be here in just about a year, and that's pretty impressive. So I just hope that it's as good and fun as the first one, which might be again an uphill battle, because the first one, like, people had the lowest of expectations. So the fact that it managed to surpass that and actually be a pretty good movie, worked in its favor that the expectations were low. But this time, it's not going to that's not going to be the case. So they're going to have to really like pull Pixar here, make a Toy Story 2 caliber sequel, I think, out of Sonic the Hedgehog 2 in order to deliver on the same level the first one did.
Yeah,
I just hope people don't get too high expectations. Not that I think it would be bad, but it's a matter of I worry that people would set expectations so high that they'll see this, and even though it might be really good, they'll be like, oh, well, that was so bad compared to the first one.
Yeah.
Because they went into the first one with bad expectations, but it ended up being good.
That's true. Yeah, the expectations are definitely higher now, but at the same time, as we've touched on before, there's more they can do with it too. There's more they can, take more places they can take it now that they've, set up all that they kind of established in the first one. So I think there's still a chance that it'll do really well and it'll be great. I certainly hope that's the case. And yeah, I'm very excited to see it too.
Me too.
So that wraps up our discussion about Sonic the Hedgehog 2. So thank you for listening, and stay tuned to Game Explained for more on the Sonic movie sequel and other things gaming too. Check out the videos on the right for more content you might be interested in, and until next time, bye.